Going to call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Here.
Councilmember Roberts,
Here.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Here.
Councilmember Graves,
Here.
Councilmember Safer,
Here.
and Councilmember Tull.
Here.
Next item is a moment of silence. Thank you. Next item is Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilmember Smith.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Sorry, Councilmember Safer.
I'd like to pull an item from the consent agenda, that being the appointment of Rebecca Welburn to the Hospital Board of Trustees.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All right. Is there a motion on, I guess, is that a new agenda? Do we need a motion on the new agenda then? Or we're just going to go ahead and adjust it?
That'll move.
Yeah, we can just go ahead and adjust it.
We'll go and adjust it. We will remove that item and move it down to the first item on the regular agenda. All right, so is there a motion to approve the consent agenda minus the removed item?
Wait a minute, we need to take the roll on the agenda.
Approving.
Oh, and approving
Approve
it.
agenda.
So wait, we are approving the agenda, but we made a change to the agenda?
You're approving the amended agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. All those in favor indicate by saying yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion passes 8-0. And that and us get comments from the public.
Yeah.
Here we go. Comments from the public. Are there any comments from the public? Please state your name and address when you come up, please.
Good evening, Council. My name is Gabriela Flores. I live at 507 East 31st, representing Ward 2. Also a member of the Equity and Inclusion Council, or Committee, sorry, my mistake. And I'm proud to work in collaboration with Lisa Tull on that council. I wanted to just take us back to the meeting very briefly on 6/15 that really discussed and described the NKC United initiative. And I just wanted to kind of step back and just maybe restate the intention of that program so that there's a little bit more clarity on that. We had, the EIC had a work meeting last week and had a really robust, rich conversation with the community, and really want to just make sure that the council and other community members are aware that the NKC United initiative is really about creating safe space for our community members. It's also about partnering and collaborating with our local businesses. And so it's really a way for us to just engage so that when I walk into a shop and I know that the business owner has created a safe space, that I feel safe to do business there and I don't feel at risk at all, nor my son, who's also a community member. So I just wanted to just clarify that. We also wanted to really work toward creating a welcoming community, and that's, I think, one really important initial first step toward that. So that was just some additional comments and thoughts that carried over from the last meeting. A second comment is really a request for your consideration. I believe that on this evening's agenda, although I don't see it listed, is discussion around diversity and inclusion training for council and staff. I realize that, you know, sometimes we get into the middle of those processes, but I would urge you to consider the following. That diversity and inclusion equity training is not a once and done kind of thing. You can't just check it off a list. It is a long-term commitment that you see very little incremental change longitudinally. So I would urge you to think about the long-term investment in that, and that also think about how do you indoctrinate or how do you train and onboard new council members, new staff members, new administrators as they come into the organization for that cultural experience. Lastly, I would urge you to consider putting it up for request for proposals so that individuals, consultants of color in the community could participate in this process. And then also just think about a train-the-trainer process, because it's not something you want to invest in year over year, but build up your capacity of your staff and/or lean on the EIC to help with that process. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Anyone else wishing to make public comments this evening?
Can I ask a question about a comment?
Generally, this is just a time for the public to speak to the council. Sorry, thank you.
Mindy Hart Davis. I live on 21st Avenue and as a business owner here as well. So I'm here in all of the roles that I have. Normally I'm obnoxious in separating myself, but now I'm including everything. I just want to thank everyone in this room, especially our council members and mayor, for the problem-solving, solution-focused mindset that you have approached things with and that you are willing to work through the hard conversations. Because these are hard conversations that we're having in our town, from the planning commission and what we're doing with our infrastructure and everything that goes on in town to everything that we're doing with the EIC. It is encouraging, as a business owner and resident here, that we, sitting in this room, are willing to work through it. And I want to thank everyone for that. And that is really my 2 cents tonight.
Thank you for the comments. Anyone else with a public comment this evening? Seeing no more, we will move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the amended consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Consent agenda passes, amended consent agenda passes 8-0. Regular items,
We will start out with what was originally number 9 on the consent agenda, which is the reappointment of Rebecca Welburn to the Hospital Board of Trustees.
Councilmember Saper.
I want to explain why I pulled that from the consent agenda. And make it very, very clear, it's got nothing to do with the qualifications of Ms. Welburn. She's eminently well qualified, experienced, and has been very active. But she's been very active on the hospital board for 19 years. Another 4 would make it 23. That's probably too long. That's far too long for any one person to be on any given board. Even the President of the United States is limited to 8 years at once. And again, I want to be clear, it's got no reflection on Ms. Welburn at all. I worked with her when I was on the hospital board. I have a great deal of respect for her. It seems to me, though, that this is a time we might want to also have a discussion about the length of its service on other boards and committees. And this council has made, by its actions and by its words, made a commitment to equity and inclusion. And that includes bringing as many diverse members of the community into an active participation with the government of North Kansas City. And by appointing people for these extended periods of service limits the number we can bring in. Simple as that. Another point is that just reading from what's on our city website, the Hospital Board of Trustees consists of 11 members, a majority of whom must be citizens of the city of North Kansas City. The remaining trustees need not be residents of the city, but must be citizens of Clay, Platte, and Ray counties. That's eminently fair and reasonable because North Kansas City Hospital is a regional facility. Actually, it goes far beyond those 3 counties. But if you look at the current board makeup, there are residents of North Kansas City, the majority, as stated. But all of the other members are residents of Clay County. There's absolutely no representation from Ray or Platte, let alone any other counties. Even though state law provides that the only requirement is that it be residents of Missouri. So again, going back to our stated commitments of equity and inclusion, we need to have representatives from those other counties as well, at least Ray and Platte. And by filling this appointment with, again, with a long-serving Clay County representative, we're missing that opportunity to do that. So again, no reflection on Ms. Welborn at all. But it's a matter of, it's time to start looking at some of these other issues of length of service on boards and committees. And again, actually putting some of our actions behind our statements about equity and inclusion, and in this case, including people from counties that have not been represented. And for that reason, I recommend that we vote no on her appointment. Again, no reflection on her, but on the situation and consequences of continuing.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments. But I would say if we want to talk tenure limits, and generally I agree with what you're saying and agree on tenure limits, but we should have that conversation. We should definitely, as you mentioned, we should set that up and have that conversation. And I know you said it wasn't against her, but I will say to my conversation I had with her a couple months ago when I started, you know, she, very well qualified. She really fit one of the puzzle pieces that they needed. They have set aside kind of special skills and skill sets that they're looking for. And she was one that, I think she was an accountant by trade before she retired and filled in that gap there. But I certainly do hear what you're saying. I do want to make sure it's abundantly clear. Like you said, she is very well qualified here. And I'm fine with having tenure limits and having that conversation later if we need to. Councilmember Clevenger.
Just a couple of quick things. First of all, so she was appointed in 2002. It's been 19 years now, and she's not a resident of North Kansas City, correct?
Gladstone, correct.
Gladstone, okay. And I'm sure very well qualified, like you said. One question is, for the mayor, are there other applications out there for hospital board? Do you have other?
I've got applications for everything.
Okay. And is she the president now on the board?
Chair, as of my
The
last
chair?
conversation, she was.
Okay. And do we know, like, how often they're elected and when their elections are as far as chairperson? Because, I don't know, I mean, I hear what Tony's saying as far as the length of term, and I'm sure we've got some qualified either residents or someone outside the city and in one of the counties, but I don't want to just, like, rip the chairperson out from underneath them if they have her as the chairperson, and I don't know how long she's been the chair. Anybody can answer
I
that?
had that up yesterday, and now I don't have it. I don't know if anyone else knows the answer to that question. I would assume it'd be on an annual, like most boards. Generally, they put that up annually. And I don't know how many years consecutively she's done it. But any other conversation? Councilmember Smith?
I appreciate what you had to say there, and I'm behind you on that one wholeheartedly.
Councilmember Graves?
I am in favor of getting new people on boards, but I am also in favor of approving reappointments so long as they are qualified, doing a good job, and are willing to continue to serve. We have a lot of people on boards here in North Kansas City, including some that are actually present in the meeting tonight that have been served on boards for a long period of time, and I would not be in favor of term limits. The way I think we should actually go about getting new people on boards, and I've spoken with the mayor privately about this, and I'll make it public now, is there are people we have on multiple boards. I believe some people are actually on 3 boards. And so I'm in favor of moving forward. If someone is up for reappointment that is on more than one board, I would prefer them to pick one board and stick with that, and then give up their spots on other boards for new people. We also have a lopsided representation here in North Kansas City. If you look at it by ward, wards 1 and 2 are vastly overrepresented on boards, whereas wards 3 and 4 have very few people on boards. And so I think that we should get new people on boards, but I would actually vote yes on this reappointment. And moving forward, if there's someone that's up for reappointment that's on 2 or 3 boards, I would prefer they just select one board and then vacate the other spots.
Any further discussion on this item? Is there a motion for the reappointment of Rebecca Wilburn to the Hospital Board of Trustees?
I move to reappoint.
Is there a second? Due to lack of a second.
I'll
need-
second. I'll
Okay,
second it.
okay.
Let's vote
There
on
is a
it.
second. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no.
No.
Oh, you're
You
gonna have
better
to
let
call
me
the
call the
roll.
roll.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Smith.
No.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
No.
Councilmember Clark.
No.
Councilmember Palumbi.
Yes.
Councilmember Graves.
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
No.
Councilmember Tull.
No.
It failed, 5 to 3. It
5 to
failed.
3. Next item, please.
Item 13, Blue Cross Blue Shield maximum refund discussion.
Kim.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The City of North Kansas City, through our partnership with Lockton Companies, contracts with Blue Cross Blue Shield, otherwise known as Blue KC, that's their marketing name, to provide health insurance plans to employees. Multiple plans are offered to employees and the city cost share premiums. The healthcare premiums are 80% paid for by the city and 20% paid for by the employees in the aggregate. One of the advantages with our Blue KC program is the large group funding options program, which includes the maximum refund program, in which the city can receive a refund at the end of the contract year for a portion of the paid premium if our claims are experienced lower than projected. So kind of just to quickly break that down, if we utilize the system less, we receive a refund. If we utilize the system more, actually Blue KC absorbs those costs. The city has been notified that we have received a maximum refund program reimbursement for the calendar year for a little bit less than $250,000. In the past, what we have done with those refunds is that they go back into their associated funds to use for the next fiscal year. And I'll credit our HR director, Casey, for this idea that she has proposed and why we're here discussing this with you today. What we are proposing is to use that maximum refund to reimburse those employees who have put into the pot. We have been very diligent. We have lived very healthy this year. So our recommendation would be to refund the 80% within the city across the separate funds, and then the 20% to reimburse that back to our employees as what we are calling a health holiday. As it is calculated, we would be able to use that health holiday, meaning that refund would be applied to upcoming premiums. We selected the month of August, and the reason being is if you are a parent, August is a pretty expensive month for you. There's a lot of back-to-school expenses for you. So one of the things that we are proposing is to use that for 2 health holidays in the month of August. And so the participating employee would not pay their copay, their health insurance copay that month. And then they would be able to keep whatever their copay would have been. We have Dina Schaefer here with Lockton Associates. If there are any questions that you may have that I might not be able to answer, what we are looking for right now is what are the city council's thought of using that particular funding reimbursement?
Councilmember Clevenger.
Quick question. When you're talking about in the month of August, you mean the employee portions of their premium that they pay out of their check? Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay.
So we would use last year's plan, and it's a little bit confusing because they operate off of a calendar year and we operate off of a fiscal year. So we would be receiving, in fact, I do believe we have received those funds already. We have put them away into a fund for the council's direction on how to exactly use those funds.
Okay.
So it would be August 2021. It would be in a couple of months to apply that refund. We do have to figure out what we are doing with that refund within this current fiscal year. So
Okay.
there is a little bit of a time horizon that we need to get some direction by the end of September.
Sure. And then another question is, I mean, I like the idea of rewarding the employees for being, healthy. I know I heard when I was in the library board meeting and they were doing their budgeting that maybe we're looking at another large increase this coming year in the health insurance. I don't know, somebody threw out 27%. I don't know if that's correct or not. Maybe Lockton can speak to that. But, would this money be better served helping absorb that, supposed increase and maybe keeping the health insurance rates low for employees throughout the year? That's just something I was throwing out there, but I'm definitely in favor of rewarding them somehow.
So I'll let Ms. Schaefer with Lockton kind of talk about what we are looking at for healthcare premiums. Again, nothing is locked down yet. We're going to use a lot of softball numbers until we get a full understanding and the ink is dry on our insurance contract.
So we took all the benefit plans to market this year, and Blue Cross Blue Shield has come back with an offer that's 7% below current for total premium rates. So that 27% is certainly not going to happen.
Okay, good.
Councilmember Toll.
I just wanted to say, Casey, this is a great idea, and I'm really happy that you thought of this. And just to be clear, because when I read it at first, it sounded like all of it, but it's already an 80-20 split. So the 20 that employees put in, they're going to get that back because of the great year that you've had, and I really like this idea, so well done.
Councilmember Rowe.
I was just going to say the same thing. This is a really innovative idea to use the funds. And with us saving, I guess, 7% next year, we're really only spending 13% of this when you look at the big picture. Congratulations. This is a great use of funds.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I love it. It's not even really a reward. It's just giving people their money back. I'm curious, so the numbers don't pencil out to 80-20. They work out to 16.5% back to the employees.
It's in the aggregate. Also, it doesn't, so the finite amount of money, there is a little bit left over, which is that roughly about 3.5%. So in order for it to come back to the employees in a whole amount, we did 2 payments in the month of August, and then the tiny bit that would be remainder, the roundup, would go back into the funds to help pay for the employees' benefits the next fiscal year, if that makes sense.
You lost me a little bit. I'm just looking at the 248,000 refund amount and then 40,851.
Correct. So the math in order to do the health holidays wasn't a 100% match. So there is a little bit, there was about 3 to 4% that didn't pencil out. The $40,851, that is how much it would cost for 2 health holidays, the month of August.
Okay.
So the premiums don't match 100%. We could go through and make that a true-up, but the employees would only get a rebate of about $2 to $3 a piece if you spread that out through all the employees. So instead of, I hate to say, getting into that level of detail monetarily, we proposed the 2 health holidays, and then the remainder of the money would go toward paying for the next fiscal year's health payments.
Okay. Yeah, that works. Thank you.
Councilmember Saber.
The rebate comes because of the Healthy Act experience over the last year. And we're not really rewarding them for being healthy. We're simply returning them to the excess money that was paid in. I would like to consider actually maybe building in a reward instead of just the 20% going an 80-20 split. Make it something like 25-75, in which they would actually, or even 30 and 70, in which employees would actually get a reward for what they did, which is stay healthy.
Any further Councilmember?
Is that a
comment?
possibility?
Sorry. Kim, I'm sorry.
That would be something we'd kind of have to put a little pen to paper and come back with what that would look like.
Okay.
Any further Councilmember comments?
I just feel
Councilmember
like anytime I get money back, it is a reward for anything. So that's my thought on it.
I like that line of thinking there. Any further comments? Do
I
you
move to
have?
approve?
Do you need anything else? It sounds generally like a positive consensus here. Would you like further direction?
If the city council is good with the health holiday program, that's the direction we will go, and
Perfect.
I think that our employees will be pretty excited to hear this news.
Thank you. Next item,
Great.
please.
River North Grant Funding Usage Change Request.
Kim.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At its May 18th City Council meeting, one of the things that you approved was the River North pre-event application form. And what that provides is River North's grant funding between April and September of 2021. River North would like to request a portion of that grant funding that has already been pre-approved by the City Council to provide shuttle service for River North businesses on the weekends. As this use of grant funding is different than what they put onto their application, we have asked them to come forward and directly discuss that ask and get some direction from council before they spend that grant funding in a way that was different than what their application said. So I do believe I saw Mr. Gower. Mr. Gower is going to kind of discuss River North's request. And then once you are done with your questions, if we could just get some form of direction on whether or not their suggestion or request is okay to expend those grant revenues with.
Good evening.
Yeah, and can I clarify one thing too? When when it's described as providing shuttle services, this is an expensive shuttle service that's going to be mostly covered by one or two or three of the businesses going in together. This would be a sponsorship to sort of help out with that effort, not unlike if we were to pay for marketing that would say, put up billboards to do something else, get something out there in print. This would be a way to advertise to anybody who rides on those shuttles. We would put pamphlets in there with a list of all the different locally owned storefronts and a map and all that good stuff. So it's just, I guess we're asking for a little stretch of the definition because I think previously it was funds that were granted just to do marketing and promotions for singular events themselves, where this would be sort of, directing some of that towards the sponsorship of a more ongoing thing. Same end result there is to help get people in the doors of some of these locally owned businesses.
Sounds good to me. Any comments?
Need a motion?
If you could, since you did
All right,
approve
fine.
the
Is
grant funding by motion.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion passes 8-0. Next item, please.
Thanks, Joe.
Temporary license agreement, Foresight Construction Group LLC, Bill number 7609, ordinance number 9406.
Kim.
I'd like to call on the city's councilor, Tom Barzee.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Before you this evening is a... Okay, now try it. Hey, there you go. I've never been accused in my entire life of not being heard, so. Before you this evening is a proposed temporary license agreement for using some city property at the Gallery Loft site on the west side. For construction purposes, it's approximately 24 feet in width and going the entire length of the construction project. It would be fenced in with a gate on the north side and a gate on the east side, on the south side, excuse me. What makes this a little bit different than most is this will be, include our emergency fire lane, but both code enforcement as well as the fire department has signed off with certain requirements that things not be left there, and if there's like equipment on there, that it always have an operator there. We're going to monitor it closely and make sure that that happens, but this will give them better access to their construction to get this project moved along. And secondly, it is on property that is subject to an operation agreement with us and the YMCA. And as you noticed in my memo, Mr. Berlin, prior to retiring, reached out to them, and they were fine with this being there. So if you have any questions, it's highlighted in the ordinance. There's the drawing that can show you where it is if you have questions.
Move to approve.
Second.
First reading.
Second.
All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Passes 8-0.
I have to abstain, so can you say
I'm sorry.
7-0?
7-0-1 abstain.
Don't you have to do the?
Now it's an ordinance.
Yeah.
I need to call roll since we have that, okay? Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll.
I abstain.
7-0-1, motion carries. An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Foresight Group LLC, doing business as Foresight Construction Group for the temporary use of certain real property owned by the City of North Kansas City, Missouri during construction of the Gallery Lofts apartment building.
I move that Bill number 7609 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9406.
Second.
There's a motion for second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
I abstain.
7-0 to 1, motion carried. An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Foresight Group LLC, doing business as Foresight Construction Group for the temporary use of certain real property owned by the City of North Kansas City, Missouri during construction of the Gallery Lofts apartment building. Item 16, establishing a resident preference in city hiring, resolution number 21-053.
Kim?
Councilmember Graves has requested that the city council's, the city's personnel manual be amended to provide that all things being equal, if there are multiple applicants for a city position, then preference would be given to the resident of the city. In addition of this section, it would not require the hiring of an individual not deemed to be qualified or suitable for a city position, and that the city administrator or their designee shall be the sole determiner as to the qualifications of any applicant for a city position other than specifically exempted by the city's code. A resolution adding this language has been prepared for the city council's consideration.
Any comments? Councilmember Roberts?
So in principle, this is a good idea, but I just can't see this being more than just unnecessary addition to our municipal code. It really doesn't do anything. I think it's, while I agree that we should be looking to hire North Kansas City residents, the best person should always be hired, and that's stated in this again. So I don't know what else we could do. We could offer maybe like a 7-day grace where residents get the preferred treatment of being able to apply first. That's like something that maybe actually moves the needle a little bit. This is just kind of silly, I think, to add to the municipal code, and I don't know. I don't ever foresee a tiebreaker needing this. That's the only time we're really talking about. So for those reasons, I will not be voting yes on this.
Councilmember Graves?
Yeah, so just to give some perspective of why I brought this forward. So back in the day, the city council actually used to be in charge of hiring. So if a police officer were to be hired or someone to work at the water plant, they would actually come before the city council and they would be voted upon to be hired. And so really the only control we have as a city council, because at this point it's delegated to department heads. So like Mr. Sands would hire people for the water department, the police chief would hire police officers, et cetera. So in the situation that there were, let's say, 2 applicants, and one lives in Blue Springs and one lives in North Kansas City, and if they have similar applications and they're equally qualified, I would like the department heads to know that they should give preference to the resident. And furthermore, another desired outcome of this policy is I believe that it will trigger more residents to actually apply for city positions. I think that more residents would apply for a job with the city, knowing that they kind of have a advantage to other applicants. And so I guess I take exception to you saying that it won't move the needle or won't do anything. And there's actually people, at least one person, she left, in this room whose kid applied to be a police officer and didn't get the job. And there's another gentleman locally that applied to be a police officer, and he's now a police officer in another area who's a qualified person. So long story short, I would like to see, and a lot of residents would like to see, more people working for the city that are actually residents. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith?
A couple things. Wes, I appreciate what you're saying there. But I do see a couple problems with particularly the language. So the term "all things equal" in hiring is a non-starter. Like, there are no 2 truly equal candidates. So, if people didn't get a job, likely it was because the better, more qualified candidate was hired. And then in a job market like we have right now, where it's already difficult to hire, I think what you're saying is probably true, that more residents would apply, possibly. But I see it as a concern that more non-residents might not apply because they see maybe they would be at a disadvantage to residents, and then just say, why would they bother if the resident's going to get preference? And a policy like this in a city of 4,500 people, it's harder to implement something like this because in a larger city it plays better, and you can use the police, for example. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if any of our police actually live in the city at this point. Is that, okay? And part of that, on the surface, if you think about it, that sounds a little off because you ideally would want your police living, but if you think about it, we encompass 4 square miles. If a police officer is here making arrests or enforcing the law, and people know exactly where they live, that puts them in a tough spot. So, there's good and bad to it. I just don't see adding this to the code being something that would benefit the city in a net sense.
I'd certainly add it. Over time, the form of government's changed several times. Over time, we moved from a 4th class to a 3rd class. We moved to where the manager had a larger role in day-to-day operation, to moving towards the current form where professional staff has more of a role in the day-to-day operation. And so I think we really need to entrust our staff that we put in that position to make the decisions. Did you have something else?
I was just going to say, Wes, you did say that there would be an advantage here, but how it's written, there is no advantage. If the most qualified person doesn't live here, they will still get the job. Again, there are almost no circumstances where 2 people are equals in hiring. So it just seems silly to add this to the municipal code, so.
Councilmember Saper.
I agree with Councilmember Roberts that it will, as written, it probably would be rarely, maybe never used. But I think it's probably important as a statement of policy and principle to support this. Not that it would actually ever probably make a difference, but it says something about what we as a city think about our residents. And we're saying that we would like you to participate in the city in many, many ways, and employment would be just one of them. Now, if you meet all the qualifications, and if you're actually in a situation where everything else is equal, that one tipping point might be enough. This is not like some other federal employment in particular, in which you get certain extra points if you're a veteran or whatever. This is, you come in on an equal basis with every other applicant. And at the end, if there is essentially no determining factor to differentiate you from another equally qualified person, then this would come into effect. And again, I agree with Councilmember Roberts. It'd be very rare, maybe never.
Councilmember Roberts.
So I guess now hearing you put this in perspective, if it were to be used, I think it questions the leadership and their hiring capabilities in a way that, let's say I didn't get hired and somebody else did, and now we're questioning the chief of police, and now it becomes a matter of his opinion of who was the better candidate. And that just feels like we can get into some possible legal situations here with hiring that's just, it just seems it's adding more fuel to a fire that doesn't exist. Like, we should certainly always be trying to hire our own citizens, but I think that we do that when we post jobs and we try to get people to apply for them. But we can't force people to apply. We can't force people to be qualified for the jobs. And this is just a weird stepping stone to add in the place that I just see, if it were to be used, could be problematic. And I don't want to put our leadership in a position where we're questioning their abilities and their function at hiring candidates.
So I would ask, on police and fire, would this even apply to them anyways? Or would that be something to do with their collective bargaining agreement, or we have the police and fire personnel board? I mean, would any of these things, I mean, they ultimately hire.
Yeah, it would be police and fire board.
That ultimately makes the decision on, so would this rule apply to them as well? Or do they operate under a different set of rules?
Yeah, we would need to check into that. I'm sorry to not have the answer for you right now.
Thank you. Any further comments?
I mean,
Councilman Clark?
that was my concern. Sorry, blowing up this mic. That was my concern. It's just you don't typically see, and again, we're not experts on police hiring, and firemen hiring, but I don't typically see officers, working in the same town they live in. I would just think that would automatically pose a problem or a threat to their livelihood. Yeah, so I can see this, although I do appreciate the initiative, because, we all have thoughts of even like, can we give preferential housing opportunities to people that work in North Kansas City, at the hospital or things like that. We can go down, all these avenues, and I do appreciate the initiative, but I do think, I don't know, by changing the complete code and how we do things, I think it's almost implied that, if somebody is fitting for the job, that maybe someone would be considered if they're a North Kansas City resident, whether it's written in code or not. That's just my 2 cents.
Can I give just one clear point of clarification?
Yes.
This is the employee manual. This
Oh,
is a
employee
policy,
manual.
not the
Gotcha.
code. I'm so
Gotcha.
sorry,
Okay.
but that, just so you guys understand, this wouldn't be changing or amending the city's code. This is more of a policy.
Okay, sorry about that. I think it's just anything where somebody can come back to say, I feel discriminated against because we had it lined out that since I'm from the city, I have to be hired. And I'm definitely just as qualified as the other person. I guess we can run into that when I would hope to feel that, if you're simply qualified and you did well at your interview, we've all been through that horrible process of interviewing for new jobs, that you would get chosen based off of your talent and qualifications.
So who would be policing this? Who would be overseeing this? Who would say, you didn't abide by this rule?
That would be something probably we would have our HR department run an annual report on this particular thing. One thing I do also, so when you're hiring an employee, there are lots of things. There's the qualifications, but there's also background checks, just so you guys are mindful of what our processes are. So sometimes we do have to shift gears because our number one applicant ran a trap somewhere within the background process. So I'm just kind of putting that out there into space. There are a lot of steps from when somebody hits the application button to when they're actually brought on board, and sometimes applicants misstep along the way.
Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, just real quick, there are cities, larger cities, that require people like police officers to live within city limits. We are not large enough to do that, obviously. The city of Kansas City has, if you're a police officer, you have to live in the city of Kansas City. I even have a client that works at the water department, and he has to live in the city of Kansas City. So we are not large enough to do things like that. We don't have a large enough population and enough housing. So the goal of this is not to have all of the staff that work for the city live here. I would like to just increase the applicants from our city, and also just shifting gears for 1 second. If you guys read, we're in the process of looking for a city administrator, and in that package, and it was also offered to Eric Berlin, who just retired, we offered the city administrator a bonus to live within the city limits of North Kansas City. And Eric did not take advantage of that, but don't quote me on this, but I think it was $10,000 salary bonus if he lived within the city limits of North Kansas City. So from my perspective, this preferential hiring system for residents was just kind of step one in a process to try to attract more residents working for the city. We're supposed to be a walkable, bikeable community. Obviously, if you work for the city and you live in the city, then you have a vested interest to do a good job. I also think that it makes the community safer if you do have police officers living on your street in the neighborhood. They get to know you, get more of a sense of like community policing versus cops that just come here to work and then go home. And so looking forward, perhaps we could even do some sort of, I'm just floating this out there, like we do for the city administrator. What if we offered people like police officers a salary bonus if they live within the city limits? So even if you're currently a police officer for North Kansas City and you don't live here, let's say you live in Blue Springs, what if we said, hey, we'll give you a bonus if you move to North Kansas City? So instead of residents applying for that position, we just take the current people and move them here. So I'm just trying to be creative and looking for solutions. And so it's not a perfect solution. It's not like a perfect thing, but I also didn't write this. I will tell you it was written by Eric Berlin. So I just kind of floated this idea to him, and this is what he came up with. So that's it.
I will say on the police residency thing, right now there is a bill on the governor's desk to actually remove that from Kansas City as well. So I don't know if he's going to veto that or what's going on there, but there is a bill out there for that. I thought I saw someone else. I got all kinds of them here. Councilmember Saber.
The problem with that reference to police and fire, they are represented by 2 organized labor unions, and their members are members of that. And I don't know if that would even be feasible for something like that in terms of the labor contracts.
What do you mean, the bonus?
Yeah.
I'm sure they would turn down the bonus.
Councilmember Toll, sorry, was that it? Councilmember Saper?
That's it?
Councilmember Toll.
I'm not in favor of it as written, because I too think that we could get in a gray area with who is the most qualified person that lives here, but I think that's an interesting idea. And it gets rid of one issue, which is just because you lived here and you got that preference when you were hired, it doesn't mean that you can't move, right? Like, not everybody stays in the same town forever. But the idea of having some sort of a benefit for living in the city, that's an interesting idea I think we should explore.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Okay, that's kind of what I was going to say. I mean, I'm all about, getting our residents possibly employed in the city if they're qualified. I like maybe the bonus idea. I know that's possibly what we're offering with the new city administrator if they move here and live in the city, is the 10,000 bonus. But like further, like either department heads or even employees, if we wanted to throw out some type of a bonus program if you did move into town, to incentivize it, I like that. But I can't vote in favor of 16 the way it is right now, so.
All right, is there, Councilmember Saper?
Just one more point. As it has been pointed out, this is in the city, personnel manual? It's not an ordinance, it's not in the code. It's a statement of policy in the city personnel manual. And as such, it doesn't have the same weight that I think a lot of people have been talking to. But what it does is, in part, the city's preferences and policy. That's it.
I'm just concerned that it could open us up.
Councilmember Clifton, go ahead.
I'm just concerned that it could open us up in that gray area to like a lawsuit if a resident thought that they were qualified and didn't get the job, and then, it could get ugly, so.
All right, is there a motion on this item? Is there a motion to approve? Hearing none, the resolution has died. Number 17.
Elected officials training discussion.
Kim.
So Councilmember Clark and Mayor DeLong have requested that the City Council discuss sensitivity training for elected officials. For background information, we have provided information on training requirements for city staff and training options provided by the Mid-America Regional Council. I'm just going to touch base on this very quickly and then open it up for your discussion. On an annual basis, city staff is required to complete harassment training. The training is broken down into 2 different categories, one for all city employees and one for managers. This training is on demand, and that allows for flexibility for employees. As you know, not all of our employees are 8 to 5. So this is more on demand, which allows for training for variable schedules. Again, some of our employees work overnight. It'd be very difficult to bring them in on the day side for training. So that's one of the reasons why we have on-demand training, to allow for those style of employees to be able to do the training on their own schedule. Should the City Council wish to access this particular training, that's something that we can quite literally flip the switch and make that training available to you very quickly. Not sure tomorrow, but pretty quickly. The Mid-America Regional Council, or MARC, actually in 2021 developed a diversity, equity, and inclusion training. This was something that actually our HR manager, Casey, has been attending. The city staff, this is something that we have been looking into probably for over a year, is what kind of equity and inclusion training can we provide to our city employees. We have tested a few of them. Not all trainings are created equal. I will be the first person to say that. Both Casey and I have undergone a couple of online trainings as part of beta testing for vendors who are very interested in our business. We really have not been impressed with some of the options that are out there. This particular training, however, Casey did complete it, and she speaks very highly about the Mid-America Training Council. Now, one of the things, kind of one of the deltas right now is it was an in-person or Zoom-led training facility. That being said, they have gotten quite a bit of interest from municipalities that would like to see that particular training converted to an on-demand style. That way, it would allow for both the organization and the elected bodies to be able to take that particular training deck kind of more on demand, like I said, which is a kind of a challenge when you have a 24/7 operation like most municipalities have. So the Mid-America Regional Council is currently in discussions with multiple agencies, including our own, on what that would look like on transitioning right now the in-person classroom style into more of an on-demand class. So that is something that city staff, we are in the process of looking into for our own organization. Obviously, it would be something that would be open to the elected body as well, should you decide that you would like to undergo the similar training. Happy to answer any questions. I really kind of turn this back over to you, Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Is there any council members that would like to? Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I like the idea of doing this training. I looked at Mark's website, and it fixed times on Tuesday mornings, and that seemed like kind of a difficult thing for the council to do. So the on-demand does have an appeal. Now, I'd be curious, because reading through the descriptions, it sounds like there's a lot of discussion sessions and breakout groups. I'd imagine you could probably speak to that was what was most beneficial, is the actual breakouts and discussions. So doing that on demand, sitting in my house, wouldn't have the same impact. So to that leaves it in kind of a weird gray area. I'm not a fan of doing the in-person on Tuesday mornings for obvious reasons. I would be a fan of having some sort of training. And I think that goes to Ms. Flores's point earlier about doing a sort of an RFP for this kind of thing. While I appreciate you vetting it, this wouldn't be the same experience that you had and appreciated. So I think it would be something certainly to explore, but this might not be the right vehicle for it necessarily until they figure out what they're going to come up with.
Any further council member comments? Councilmember Graves.
I'm in favor of this, and I personally am not into like Zoom classes, so I actually would prefer an in-person class. I think I'd get more out of it that way. And then also, I just wanted to kind of echo a resident, Miss Lisa Wood had a really good suggestion that it be open to the public. And so we might have residents that would like to attend. And if we had an in-person presentation, then we could open it up to our residents who are taxpayers and might be interested, and maybe even business owners might want to take advantage of this opportunity, and we could do a kind of a community presentation and open it up to, if this training, it really is beneficial, then why not get as many people involved as possible and reach the community? So
Thank you.
That's my 2 cents.
I'd also add, new board members as well. Maybe something good to touch on. I think that was in one of those. I gotta give Lisa Woods credit again. It might have been Dave, one of the two. Yeah, they had mentioned, new board members. It may help them as well. So depending on which direction we go, we go a lot of different directions, but just as we decide who we're offering it to.
I think this is a good one to consider. I just felt the eye contact, so.
Councilmember Clark, there, I'll make it official.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a great one to consider, and I was curious about Casey's experience. As we know, there are many trainings where it just feels like you're checking a box and kind of spacing out. I think that engagement and the personal interaction is going to be more effective. Obviously, it's going to be tricky to manage schedules. But tonight, I think we're just sort of kind of spitballing in a way, in a focused way, if we're all comfortable to just kind of explore. I don't want to lay the burden, on the city who has lots to do right now, but just sort of exploring. I've been exploring on my end just some opportunities of what that might look like, and it might come back to the Mark training, if that's the best fitting for everybody. But I'm glad to see that most people are open to it. And thank you for the work you put into, kind of putting in. Casey, thank you for completing that training. You'll train us next, right? Is that how that's going to go? No. That's it.
Any further councilmember comments? Councilmember Tull.
Kind of exactly what I was going to say. To meet our needs, I think another thing that Ms. Flores said was that this is ongoing, so it isn't a check the box, one and done. This will be a training that you have to take on for years, not 6 hours. So I would be curious as to whether or not we would look at having maybe Casey trained to be a trainer who could also train other people that would have access to our overnight employees, to our Equity and Inclusion Committee, to us, if we could look at a system like that, where we're trained to be trainers and we can spread out that way.
Councilmember Saber. I'm sorry, you're good. Councilmember Saber.
Council members Clark and Toll said it, and I agree with that. That's what I was going to say.
Perfect. Any further comments? Any clarification needed from staff?
No, like I said, we actually have a meeting with Mark on Thursday to discuss what that could potentially look like. It's not the end-all, be-all. Again, it's just something that city staff, we've gone through a lot that I don't know if I would recommend to you. This one was highly recommended, and several other government agencies are trying to explore this style. Again, we may come back to where we do an RFP, RFQ, something like that, because it just doesn't plain meet our needs. There are lots more conversations. And to be full honest, Mark also has some kind of understanding of how this would look and feel on a more on-demand transitioning from an in-person, or maybe it's a hybrid. Maybe we offer an in-person, and if you can't make it, here's the on-demand model. It may not be as robust, but it works with a schedule.
Thank you. You don't want to extend your Tuesdays any further?
Yeah.
Councilmember Till.
I was just going to say, if you are meeting with them, and it sounds like they're open to trying to make changes to meet city needs, you may also ask them about having a training for somebody from the city to become a trainer, or a few people from the city to become a trainer. It may be an excellent resource for us to have someone to turn to like that, and it may be economical as well. Plus, it would enable us to continue the learning long-term and not just for one class or two classes.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Number 18, Juneteenth federal holiday.
Kim.
On June 17th, President Biden signed into law a bill to make Juneteenth or June 19th a federal holiday celebrating the end of slavery in the United States. With this new law, there are now 12 federal holidays. Previous to the recent actions, the city observed 8 of the 11 federal holidays and the Friday after Thanksgiving. In the staff memo, I tried to kind of do a side-by-side on what the federal ones are and what the city observes. We are asking for direction whether or not the city next calendar year would like to, if you would like the city to observe Juneteenth as one of the holidays that we observe on the calendar year. And I hate to say, we just kind of leave that over to discussion and direction from the council.
Oh, is that
Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Plumby.
I would be in favor of observing the holiday personally. I think it is an important holiday to be observed, so I would actually like to motion to go ahead and move forward.
All right,
Second.
there's a
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion passes 8-0. Next item, please.
Resolution, Block Party Grants, Rules and Procedure. Resolution number 21-054.
Kim.
On June 19th, via Resolution 18-042, which was attached to the memo, the City Council established a grant program to assist and encourage neighborhoods in North Kansas City in hosting block parties. This is kind of a way for neighbors to get to know neighbors, which is one of the reasons why the City Council wished to approve it. At its meeting on June 15th, the City Council discussed changes to the originally adopted rules. Now before the Council is approval of a resolution offering amended rules for the neighborhood block grant program. One of the key things was to expedite the approval of these particular ones. One of the concerns that the City Council expressed was because it had to come in front of the City Council, it would limit people's ability to not have a spontaneous party, but maybe a party that didn't take 3 to 4 weeks out to plan. So that is what is proposed today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Just a quick, I like how we're streamlining it where the city administrator can make the decision. But we can allow the interim city administrator to make that decision in the timeframe?
Councilmember Roberts.
I move to approve.
Is there
Second.
any further discussion?
I do have one quick thing.
There is further.
Yeah, section E, the notified the party and allowed to attend. I know we were getting around like the everybody must be invited language, but the allowed to attend, based on our discussion last time of potential, I don't know what the right word is, but criminal activity or criminals on blocks that would not be necessarily invited to parties. If everyone has to be allowed to attend, that becomes a question of, are we really making that a sticking point? So I didn't know where we landed on that last time, but are we going to push for everyone to be allowed?
I can add kind of what we talked, everyone should at least be notified that the road's going to be blocked off. I mean, everyone still has the right to go to work, still has the right to go up and down.
Correct, and the notification part's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't have any
Be
other.
allowed to attend.
I would just remove the verbiage allowed to attend.
Councilmember Toll.
I don't think we can remove that verbiage. I think I know what this is coming from, the list of people. I think if you really had a concern like that, you just wouldn't have a block party. I just can't see somebody's living legally in a home on a block and they're not invited to a city-sponsored event. You could do that without having city sponsorship if you felt that strongly about it. But I wouldn't want to exclude anyone who's legally living on the block from a city-sponsored block party.
I thought I saw another hand. Is that a hand?
No, I'm
It's
just
kind of a-
moving to approve again.
Oh, there is a motion and a second on the floor. If there's no further conversation, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries 8-0. Next item, please.
Number 20, Budget Amendment, Equity and Inclusion Committee, Resolution Number 21-052.
So I'll take this one myself. I requested this because as the Equity Inclusion Committee gets a little farther into the work they've been doing, it's come to a point where they're probably going to need money to fund some of the projects and some of the things they want to do. So I've requested that City Council consider a $2,000 budget amendment to help them finish this fiscal year. Next fiscal year, we'll look at a larger amount to help them out with stuff, things like strategic plan and other programs they want to do. Councilmember Roberts.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a first or a second. Any further councilmember discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes 8-0. Next item, please.
Number 21, Budget Amendment, Establishing the American Rescue Plan Fund, Resolution Number 21-055.
Kim.
I'd like to call on the Finance Manager, Nick Hawkins.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So this resolution would establish a separate fund to track expenditures through the American Rescue Plan. The city is anticipated to receive about $922,000 from this. We would budget $460,000 for this year in anticipation of a second amount for next year. This follows in line with what many other communities are doing. It also follows in line with what our auditor has suggested in order to better track these funds. So we did set up a COVID-19 fund last year for the CARES funds, but the eligible uses are different enough that establishing a separate fund is best practice.
Thank you. I would just clarify, like you said, this is setting up the fund. We don't actually have a plan on spending the money yet. This is just a place for the money to come in. The money has not come yet in either, and I don't think we know when that's going to come in. So is there any further council member discussion? Is there a
Move
motion?
to approve.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries 8-0. Next item, please.
Item 22, Park Maintenance Building Addition, Change Order Number 1.
Councilmember Smith, did you have something?
Move to approve.
Oh, there's a motion.
Saving
Second.
money.
In a second, is there any council member comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion passes 8-0. Item number 23.
Review of North Kansas City Destination Developers Community Improvement District Fiscal Year 2021-2022 Budget.
Kim.
So there are several state statutes that kind of guide the public process for CIDs, or community improvement districts. There are two of them on your agenda, so I'm going to talk about them kind of in tandem here, but talk about the specifics individually. So the city council must review these budgets on an annual basis. They are submitted to the city council. You are free to comment on them, but you are not free to reprogram that, if that makes sense. You can make comments to them. They go back to their own individual governing boards. So this particular one is for the North Kansas City Destination Developers Community Improvement District, which is the area over, it's the One North area. So they have submitted their annual budget as part of their process for your review.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, next item, please.
Review of 18th and Swift Community Improvement District budget.
Kim?
So again, this is exactly like it was before, although this one is a little bit unique. This is for the 18th and Swift CID, so as long as this legal entity exists, we must comply with all reporting mandates. The city staff is in the process of unwinding this particular CID, of which we hope to have that done this calendar year. But just because of timing, we must submit a budget. As you'll notice, it was a goose egg budget. This is part of the reporting mandate, and even though it will soon become defunct, we want to make sure that we are compliant.
Any comments? Seeing none, thank you. Next item, please.
Approving accounts due and payable by the city through July 2nd, 2021.
First reading?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through July 2nd, 2021.
I move that bill number 7610 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9407.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through July 2nd, 2021.
Number 26, staff comments. Kim?
Inside your packet, you will see that there are two items for your review, the upcoming city items of note and the quarterly status of city projects and purchases report. I did not receive any city staff comments, but if there are any,
Now they're on the spot. Anybody? What have you guys been doing? No, I'm kidding. No.
just a small comment for me. I do appreciate the city council's confidence in appointing me into your interim city administrator position. I hope to serve this community, which I love, in this role, and I appreciate your confidence and patience for me as we roll through this together.
Thank you. Next up, council member comments. Councilmember Smith.
Kim, welcome to the new role. We are very happy to have you in that role and have the utmost confidence you're going to do a great job. Additionally, it's come to my attention that Public Works did something really cool. There was some sidewalk chalk distributed. I don't know who is specifically responsible. Was that you, sir, or?
Chris Cooper.
Cooper.
Really?
Yeah, so Mr. Chris Cooper, thank you so much. Very, very cool. And hopefully we can expand on that and maybe have like a sidewalk chalk day. That's all from me.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Just some couple of things. First of all, I want to welcome the new board appointees to the library board. Look forward to working with you guys on that. So that's one thing. Also, everybody said how great Arts in the Park was last council meeting, and it was really great. And I volunteered there, and actually, never happened before, but I got a thank you note from the Parks Director for volunteering. So I wasn't expecting that, but that was a nice detail that makes me want to volunteer again and again and again. And let's see, thanks to Tina for the YMCA, and excited to participate in the sensitivity training. Thank you, Councilmember Clark and Mayor DeLong for bringing that forward. And that's it.
Can we make sure his infinite volunteer hours are noted in the minutes? Thank you, Councilmember Roberts.
Well, I want to congratulate Kim completing her first council. Well, almost done with it. You did a terrific job. No one had any doubts. On the heels of that, the city administration job is open for applications. So if you think you can do better than that. It is, if you didn't know, it's National Fried Chicken Day, so go ahead and end your night in a good way. And tomorrow is Chiefs Training Camp Day 1, and that's all I got for you. And that's been the weather with Adam.
To echo, Kim, great job. Thank you to Gabriela Flores and as well as Mindy. Thanks for speaking up. She's not here, but thank you. And my mic just went out.
I didn't turn you
Okay.
off, that one, no.
That's good. That's good.
I could.
Yeah, I'm glad that everyone was open on the council to the sensitivity and diversity and inclusion training. I think it's going to be great. I'm glad that we're all on board with that, and I just appreciate everyone's initiatives, and I'm so happy to see Juneteenth being adopted as a holiday as our city. I'm so proud of us and so
Thank
proud
you.
of our city. Thanks.
Councilmember Plummer.
Yeah, like everyone said, welcome, Kim, and thank you for all your hard work and for getting through your first session. I also wanted to thank Ms. Flores for her comments in regards to the EIC and for sharing, what her version of the mission is and what it's truly meant to be. And in addition to that, there is an opening for Ward 4 for a member to be appointed to the EIC. So if anybody is interested, please reach out to me. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Graves.
Hi, so I'd like to use my councilman comments to talk about what I'm working on. And my resident priority hiring system just exploded in my face. And sometimes you shoot shots and you throw up an air ball. So you look for what are you going to work on next. So I've spent the last 3 weeks educating myself in areas that I'm very ignorant in, and including like the LGBTQ community. And something that was brought up to me by a group of people that I was completely unaware of, that is my next focus, is something called conversion therapy. And so you might be wondering what conversion therapy is. Conversion therapy is an attempt to change an individual's sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. And this is something that I thought existed like in the 1950s and no longer exists. But guess what, folks? It's actually still legal in 30 states. So it's been banned in 20 states, the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. The state of Missouri, conversion therapy is actually still legal. And so what's happening here in Missouri is municipalities are taking it upon themselves to ban conversion therapy. St. Louis, Kansas City, and Columbia, Missouri have banned conversion therapy. There's some smaller cities, including Blue Springs, are kind of looking at it right now. I believe St. Joseph as well. And so you might be asking yourself, why? Why are you interested in this? Well, first of all, it does not work. It's been proven to be ineffective. I've done a lot of research on this, and please do your own and give me your feedback. And then more intense, not only does it not work, but it causes a lot of harm. And what it does is you basically are telling kids, it's basically done to youth, and you're basically telling kids that they're being rejected by their family. And what it's shown to do is increases suicide attempts by youth. Youth that go through conversion therapy have shown to have double suicide attempt rates, increases depression, and substance abuse. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is this is something I'm working on. We should ban it here in North Kansas City. And I'm asking the people sitting up here to join me. Thank you.
So I would note, I'll tell you how close we are on that. As I started the process on that some point last year, and we do pretty much have a very drafted ordinance, very close. So probably something we can get done in the next meeting or two, just because, yeah, it's the legal memo's done, the fun part that Tom does is all done and wrapped up already. So that is already very close, and hopefully we see that in the next meeting or two. Thank you. Councilmember Saber.
Last week, the Equity and Inclusion Committee had an open work session in which many people attended in this room. And they proposed even having sort of a town hall meeting session. And it was very instructive to see the direction they're going in, the inclusion that they want to include people in the Equity and Inclusion Committee and their points of view and concerns. And I encourage people to take advantage of that kind of outreach and come to the next open meeting of the Equity and Inclusion Committee. Thank you.
Councilmember Dole.
I have quite a few today, sorry. First of all, to Mr. Sands, our alley is beautiful, and it has rained since you put it in, and it drains properly. Also, I was going to say to you and to Chris Cooper, We live in the alley that got the chalk. They created Chalktopia, and I'm telling you, with the letter and the chalk, they felt like they were paid artists. They are so excited. So that was wonderful. Thank you, and thank you to Chris. Victoria, Art in the Park was amazing, and the retirement party that we had for Eric was so beautiful. So I would say to people, if you're looking at having a celebration, you should look at renting the room at the Parks Department. It was just lovely. Casey, I wanted to tell you, thank you so much for your input on training. For the Equity and Inclusion Committee is something that we're looking at, and I do know that not all programs are equal. So it's going to take a lot of work to probably find something that meets our unique needs, and I really want to thank you for doing that. And then my final comment is, I'm glad to see the change in attitude, but I would like to talk directly to the individuals and families that emailed me specifically after our last meeting, people that have chosen to build their lives here and felt unwelcomed. I want to say to those people publicly, without calling them out by name, that you do belong here. We're working on our deficits, and I'm terribly sorry that we made you feel that way.
Thank you. First of all, we want residents to apply to jobs. Please apply. There's openings. I wish I had it to roll off. nkc.org/careers. I don't know, hopefully. Jobs. There we go. Thank you. Jobs. nkc.org/jobs. There we go. Should have wrote that down beforehand. Congratulations, Kim, on your first meeting. We're 4 hours from the end after our executive sessions here. It's council. I am working on my Dias bias. I was told I had Dias bias. I was favoring this direction. This side got a little bit of favorite today, so next time we're back even, and I can spread the wealth evenly. Congratulations to Bart Germain and Nick Dean on your appointments to the library board. I have 2 planning commission openings I'll likely be filling next meeting, and now a hospital board appointment. Thank you. I have no further comments. Next item, please.
Number 29, consideration of a request to hold a recess into an executive session as requested by the city councilor to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute, Section 610.0212.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Number 30, consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the interim city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute, Section 610.0212.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the interim city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute, Section 610.0212.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Gotta change that.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Clevenger.
Councilmember
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember
here.
Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Find out what-
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Okay. Item 32, consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the city councilor to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute, Section 610.0212.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Second.
Councilmember
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Absolutely.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Last time. Consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the interim city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute, Section 610.0212.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Thank you to my favorite city clerk for reading that so well.
I hope you guys are still here when we get back.
I'm in control here. 1, 2.
Move to adjourn.
Second.